The Minnesota Vikings have made a sneaky signing after meeting with Jeff Okudah yesterday. They have officially inked a deal today. We're going to be talking about what this means for the Minnesota Vikings as they head towards the draft, looking for more secondary as well as the remainder of free agency. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video very quickly. Before we get into it though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We know that 91% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Minnesota Vikings news, you're in that right spot. Hit the sub button, join us here on the channel. We're covering everything Minnesota Vikings. And as Jeff Okudah scrolls across the free agency base bar on the bottom of the screen right now, he has joined the Minnesota Vikings, according to Adam Schefter. Here is the report that came out a little while ago. Adam Schefter tweeted, "The Vikings and cornerback Jeff Okudah have reached an agreement today on a one-year contract per Uni Sports Management CEO Kevin Connor. The 26-year-old Jeff Okudah had multiple options, but chose to return to the NFC North, this time with the Vikings to play for defensive coordinator Brian Flores." Now, this is a major update. We've discussed yesterday, me and Griffin, in a video that Jeff Okudah had been an interesting option for a little while, although he had a very bad season last year with the Houston Texans, putting up some of the worst numbers amongst the cornerbacks in the NFL. Heading to defensive coordinator Brian Flores, heading to Minnesota, and having multiple options, as Adam Schefter mentioned here, is a big thing for this Minnesota Vikings team. We know that the former third overall pick, Jeff Okudah, has quite a bit of potential still. I don't want to count him out. At 26 years old, playing with 3 separate teams so far, playing with the Falcons, with the Houston Texans, and of course with the Detroit Lions, where we saw him put up some very good defense against Justin Jefferson in 2022. It is looking very interesting what the future will hold as long as he can stay healthy. Now, I did want to pull up what we had yesterday here. These few kind of stats from the PFF gradings and whatnot. He had a 29.3% coverage on 52 coverage snaps last year, according to PFF. And also going on to the PFF website, they're holding these here, having him as an overall grade of 30.8, which is ranked the 5th worst cornerback in the NFL, and having 78 snaps last season as well, with 165th out of 222, with, of course, 0 interceptions. Now, when we're looking at Jeff Okudah as his career, as I mentioned, he has not been able to stay healthy. He's had quite a few issues here about that, and really just not been able to consistently stay on the football field since earlier on in his career, which is something that, of course, is going to hinder your grading and whatnot, not being out there for every play, not being there in a regular scenario. And although we may not see that necessarily this season for the Minnesota Vikings, he is going to be playing a much bigger role than he has with the Houston Texans and, of course, with the Falcons since his days back in Detroit. When we're looking at what we've seen from him and adding him now to this list, and of course this has not been updated yet as it just happened a little while ago here on the ESPN depth chart, we will slot him in alongside Byron Murphy, alongside Isaiah Rodgers, and of course having him paired up with Theo Jackson, Harrison Smith, their 2 safeties now. We're going to have a pretty good corner depth now with Rodgers, Murphy, Metellus, who's we've known has played all over the field, as well as Mekhi Blackmon, who, believe it or not, is the same age as Jeff Okudah, which really puts into perspective kind of the age sense of all of this. Now, the one-year deal that we're going to look at here from Jeff Okudah, we don't yet know the price. His market value was listed at around $5 million according to Spotrac, so we could assume it's going to be around this. But having him at this salary, with the Vikings having a little over $30 million in cap space, they're going to be able to make some extra moves. And this puts them in a bit of a spot where we can look at the rest of the corners. We saw that they handpicked out Jeff Okudah to bring in on a free agent visit, something I mentioned a bit more in yesterday as well. So be sure to go check out that video. Me and Griffin kind of went over the idea of him being a depth corner on this team, as well as what could come out of it, and it's very interesting what we had to say. But when we're looking at this $5 million, the Vikings now have the opportunity to go out and make another signing, whether it is in the secondary, whether it's going to be in the depth, whether it's going to be really anywhere with this Minnesota Vikings team. It gives them the option to be able to go work there and really figure everything out for this team, and hopefully at least get a big bounce back and potentially stay with this Vikings team for a little while longer. And that's also kind of what I went and put into perspective here, is that when we're looking at Jeff Okudah as a possible extension option, he is going to be there because of his age. 26 years old, if he were to bounce back, obviously was a 3rd overall pick for a reason. We can really, put that money into perspective, put it into perspective about how it would work out later on in his career, and really go from there about what we're looking at and how things will play out for the Vikings, at least this season. Now, when we do look at the cornerbacks that were options for the Minnesota Vikings, apart from Jeff Okudah, I want to pull up the screenshot that we had yesterday here, where we had James Bradbury, we had a bunch of other guys, Rasul Douglas, who made a video on, But realistically, the one that I found the most interesting was Jeff Okudah. And for the reasons I kind of just mentioned, the age is a big factor here when you're comparing him to the remainder of the field here. Him and CJ Henderson are the two that are really in the younger group, possibilities of being, I don't want to necessarily say franchise cornerbacks, but have possibilities of really going out to prove themselves and making that money turn into, a lifelong contract, one would say. Although it may not be, that big of a signing, that big of a potential deal coming up or whatnot. We still have to watch what he does this season, see how it progresses, see if he can stay healthy and whatnot. But it gives the Vikings that option to be able to work with him internally on a potential deal if the season does go in the right direction, of course, and he plays very, very well. And I do think that when we're pairing him with Brian Flores, putting Brian Flores in the situation, putting him with Jeff Okudah, and as Adam Schefter mentioned, he had multiple options and really found that the most interesting option, probably the best option for his career, was going to be with Brian Flores and with this defense. We saw this defense really be able to make some players that, kind of come out of the bushes, really shine and work how they can improve their career and all of that stuff. And that's a big thing that the Vikings have been noted of as the last few years and really have been trying to work for the last few years. And we've seen a lot of these older guys come over and really just want to play here. They don't care about the money as much as wanting to play in a defense that, first of all, is fun to play with, but second of all, is just every aspect perfect. We needed that extra bit of secondary help, which we're starting to get, and we've gotten quite a bit now. But looking at how things have played out in this offseason, as much as they were missing, they've really been able to fill these holes, and I would say exceeded so many expectations about where things were going to go from here. So I'm very excited to see how this Jeff Okudah signing does progress and how it comes out to play. But I do have one more screenshot here from Will Raggets on X. The Vikings have signed cornerback Jeff Okudah, Adam Schefter, the regular things that we've been looking for, but the number 3 former overall pick is joining the team, new team for a third consecutive season, but still just 26 years old. He'll give Brian Flores and the Vikings some depth at cornerback and will perhaps have some untapped upside. And that's the big part I wanted to touch on, is what will come from him here in this season. We know that he's not been healthy. We know that he's had the potential of being a number 3 overall pick, and we saw that against Justin Jefferson a few years back. And if that channel, that untapped potential can still be retapped and get back to that potential, the Vikings are going to have themselves one very, very good secondary. And that's one thing that I think we need to focus on quite a bit this year. It was very good last season, having a turnover in every game. But when we're looking at being able to cover anybody and everybody all at the same time, we need a good secondary. Having those big plays that happened last year against the Vikings, there were some there, but there was also some that were very consistently getting first downs, a 10-yard check down, whatnot, stuff like that. That's where the Vikings really need to lock up on defense, and I think that they've been able to get the players here in this offseason to be able to fix that. So let me know what you think about the Jeff Okudah signing. Obviously, this is one that we didn't necessarily see coming right away, but after this visit and after this visit was announced, we had the good idea that this was going to happen. So let me know what you think here in the comments below. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing up. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.